once you input all of your content, this is what your table on your web page looks like at this point in time, or something similar to that. If you've closed your web page, the easiest way to get it open is if you'll right click on here and choose Open With, and if you don't see Notepad there, just go to Choose Another App and More Apps, and we can find Notepad, and we can check this box that says always use this app to open HTML files, which you don't really want that because you want it to open in a browser. So right clicking will do the trick. Okay, so this is what we have so far. I want to make sure that you see that if your stuff does not look like this, you want to make sure that your content is actually between the tags and not inside the greater than or less than symbol. So it's not in a tag, it's between the tags. So that's key in order to get it to look right. So at this point, what we want to do though is we want to specify how we are going to customize this with some attributes to get it to work properly. Okay, so we want to put in an image before we do anything else. Now remember, we have this image here, astros.jpg, and if I use, notice that there's one cell here that has nothing in it. I am going to put an image in between. Okay, and again, the image is a tag on its own. Oops, source equals there it is. So it's a tag that's between those two tags. Now if I save that, and by the way, I'm using Control S to save, and refresh, nothing happens. Okay, and the reason is because this image is in the images tag. So we have to specify the path to get there. So I'm going to do images/Astros, save it, and there it is. Now, it's a little big, so I'm going to resize it by adding a width attribute. And I'm not sure what size. I'm going to start off by making it 200. And actually, I think that's a good size right there. Width equals 200. Okay, so we have that in there, and this is probably a good width for this particular column. But now we want to make the rest of these an equal width as well. And right now, they're basically taking up the width of the biggest thing to make it fit, which is the text up here. So we'd like all of these to be spaced equally. So obviously this one, this first cell or first column, and we do that by putting in the cell, we can make it width equal 200 because the image is already that. But in the next ones, if we change that 200 to 100, and then we can copy this into the remaining cells, and we only have to specify it in one column. Once it is specified in one column, or one row rather, it applies to the rest of them. Okay, so we can see how this is done. Now, the batting average right here, because of the width of that, it made that onto two lines. So we can go in and add a tag that makes it split up. And that's with what is called a line break tag. So, and that's BR. So this tag, unlike a paragraph tag that puts a blank line in between, this BR tag puts them right on top of each other with no blank line. You see how that works? So now they are looking a little bit better. Okay. Now we also would like to put in like a table, a row that has the title of the table. And we can do that. We need to put in a new row above it. But what we also need to put in is some attributes for it. So what I'm going to do is I have this first row here. I'm going to go ahead and start a new one. And it's going to have 2 cells. Okay, so I'm going to actually put just one. It's going to be a TH so that it's bolded and centered. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this cell that has the image in it. I'm going to do a Control X to cut it. And I'm going to put it up here so that it's the first cell in the new row that I'm entering. Okay. Now, if you saved it and refreshed it, it's going to look a little freaky right now because it's not the way we want it. Okay. But we have 2 attributes that are called row span and call span for column span, so that we can have cells that span across multiple rows or columns. So this first one, if we look at this image, we actually want this to span 2 rows. We want the batting average to be next to it, and we want the table heading cell to be next to it. So right here, after width equals 200, I'm going to do row span equals 2. And I'm going to save it and refresh it, and now batting average is next to it. And then this next cell here is where I'm going to put in an H1 actually that says Astros World Series batting stats. And I'm going to close the H1. And this one, actually I'm going to save it so you can see the difference. This one's showing up right here, which is not what we want. We want it to span all the way across. So this TH is going to have a call span of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 5 columns. And so now it's starting to take place. If we look at it right now, we have a border set at 1, and we have cell padding and cell spacing attributes. So the cell padding, if you think about it like the padding on a wall, whoops, I keep hitting the wrong one, we can put in, say, 5, and what that is going to do is give it 5 pixels of buffer from the wall of the cell to the contents. Okay, so it's spacing it out a little bit. Then I can do cell spacing. Oops, that's not the right one. Hold on, where am I? Right here. Sorry, cell spacing equals, and I want it to equal 0. Now the cell spacing is this little bitty space between each cell. So when I make it 0, it's going to make that border a solid line as opposed to double lines, which I think looks better. Okay, so that's there. We also have the ability to give some style to this. And you can do that in the tables. You can also do that with a style sheet. So I want you to see how it's done without a style sheet, and then we'll add the style sheet in a little bit. So if we did, in the body tag, did a BG color of, we'll say, light yellow. Okay, and then let's say the table tag, we did BG color, and that stands for background color, equals light orange. Let's see if light orange is a color. Oops, light orange is not a color. Let's just do orange. There we go. And then let's say that we want just the first row, or actually not even the first row because that image is in the first row. We want this cell right here, which is right here, to have a BG color of red. Okay, so you can see how you can specify by with attributes in your tags how to add background colors. In addition, you can specify a border, which we did here, which is basically saying what size you want it to be. So if I wanted to increase it to 5. There it is. And I can also put in a border color. And if I just make this one yellow instead of the, and there is the border, which goes all the way through it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save what I have here, and I'm going to keep this open, and I'm going to do Control N to start a new one, and you'll go on to do a style sheet for it.